The day the sky darkened over every major city on Earth was one humanity would never forget. It began like any ordinary Tuesday morning, until massive ships appeared in low orbit, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the blue sky. Global communications went into chaos. News broadcasts interrupted regular programming with shaky footage of the 12 enormous vessels, now visible to everyone with eyes turned upward. Military forces worldwide went to high alert, but their weapons remained silent. What good would Earth's missiles do against visitors who had crossed the stars? Admiral James Reed was awakened by the emergency call at 4:37 a.m. By noon, he found himself seated in an emergency United Nations meeting as Earth's military leaders attempted to form a unified response. "We have no choice but to approach this with caution," Reed said, his weathered face betraying none of the anxiety churning in his stomach. "If they wanted us dead, we'd be gone already." As if in response to humanity's confusion, the vessels broadcast a message simultaneously to every communication device on the planet. The aliens call themselves the Galactic Council, a coalition of 23 spacefaring species who claim to oversee the development of emerging civilizations. 3 days later, Reed stood on the landing pad at Geneva International Airport, watching as a sleek shuttle descended from one of the massive ships. The vessel touched down with barely a whisper, its surface rippling like liquid metal. The beings that emerged looked surprisingly humanoid, tall, with four-fingered hands and skin that shifted subtly in color as they moved. Their leader introduced himself as Delegate Thorin. "We come in peace," Thorin said, his voice oddly melodic through the translation device. "The Galactic Council welcomes Earth into the greater community of intelligent species." The meetings that followed seemed promising. The council representatives spoke of cultural exchange, technological sharing, and mutual protection. Earth's governments, initially divided in their response, gradually united in cautious optimism, until the terms were revealed. "Earth will be granted protected status," Thorin explained during the fourth day of negotiations. His skin shifted to a deep blue as he spoke. "This is a great honor. We will establish orbital stations to oversee your development and ensure you do not make the same mistakes as other young species." Reed sat silently as Thorin outlined resource quotas, limits on what Earth could use of its own minerals, water, and energy sources. The remainder would be temporarily allocated to council needs. Protected status, it seemed, meant controlled. That night, Reed met privately with Dr. Eliza Morgan, Earth's leading xenolinguist. "Something feels off," Morgan said, her eyes red from reviewing council documents. "Their language contains subtle contradictions. They speak of protection but use terms that suggest ownership." Reed nodded. "I've requested satellite monitoring of their vessels. They're sending down mining equipment, not cultural exchange materials." Their suspicions deepened when Morgan's team managed to access an unsecured portion of the Council's database. What they found chilled them to the bone. Records of dozens of protected worlds, all showing the same pattern. Initial contact, resource agreements, then systematic extraction until the planets were barely habitable. "They're not partners," Reed said grimly as he reviewed the evidence. "They're parasites." The final confirmation came when Council representatives began establishing orbital stations without waiting for Earth's formal agreement. Hidden cameras caught Thorin speaking to his subordinates, his translated words damning. "Earth's resistance is irrelevant. Within a decade, we'll have extracted what we need. Their military capability is primitive. They pose no threat to the Council." Reed stared at the recording, his jaw tight with anger. He looked out the window at the night sky, where alien ships now hung like new, ominous stars. "That's where they're wrong," he whispered. "They have no idea what humans do when backed into a corner." He picked up a secure phone and dialed a number known to only 12 people on Earth. When it answered, Reed spoke just 5 words. "Initiate protocol fierce retaliation." Now, the Galactic Council worked quickly. Within weeks, they had established 7 orbital stations around Earth, each a gleaming testament to advanced technology. The stations hovered like silent watchers, their curved hulls reflecting sunlight over the cities below. These will serve as cultural exchange centers, Delegate Thorin explained during the public announcement. His skin shimmered with pleasant greens as he gestured to the holographic display. Earth's representatives will be welcomed aboard to learn about galactic civilization. What the public broadcasts didn't show were the extraction vessels deploying from the dark sides of these stations each night. These ships, squat and utilitarian, descended to remote locations where they drilled deep into Earth's crust, harvesting minerals that the Council had deemed surplus to human needs. Admiral Reed watched satellite footage of one such operation in the Australian outback. The aliens had extracted enough rare earth minerals in 3 days to equal Earth's total production for a year. "They're not even trying to hide it," said General Maria Torres, head of the newly formed United Earth Defense. Her face was grim in the dim light of the underground command center they now used for secure meetings. "They don't think they need to," Reed replied. "They believe we're primitive and grateful for their attention." The worst discovery came 6 weeks after first contact. Dr. Morgan's team had continued their covert access of Council databases, and what they found confirmed their worst fears. Morgan placed a data drive on the table in the secure meeting room 30 meters below the Pacific Ocean. The facility, once a research station for deep-sea mining, had been converted into humanity's most secure command post. "We've translated their records of previous protected worlds," she said, her voice hollow. "Earth is the 27th planet they've approached this way." The holographic display showed world after world, some similar to Earth, others wildly different. All shared the same fate. Initial cooperation followed by increased resource extraction, then environmental collapse as the Council stripped each planet of everything valuable. "The inhabitants of this world tried to resist," Morgan said, pointing to a blue-green planet labeled Ketrax 7. "The Council simply triggered their volcanoes with targeted energy weapons. 90% of the population died in the first month." The room fell silent as Earth's leaders absorbed the information. "So we can't fight them directly," Reed finally said. "Not yet, but we need to learn everything we can from them while appearing compliant." Dr. Thomas Wright, head of Earth's Science Council, nodded thoughtfully. "They've given us access to some of their basic technology as a gesture of goodwill. Even their basics are centuries ahead of our own." "Can we use it?" Torres asked. "We're already reverse engineering everything they show us," Wright confirmed. "And they're not as careful as they should be. Their arrogance is a weakness. They don't secure all their systems because they don't believe we can understand them." Reed stood and walked to the display. "From now on, we have 2 faces. To the Council, we are grateful, even awed by their presence. Meanwhile, every scientist, every engineer, every military mind works on our response." The strategy began immediately. Earth's governments publicly embraced the Council's presence. Carefully selected representatives visited the orbital stations, marveling at alien technology, while secretly recording everything they saw. Scientists accepted educational materials from Council members, then worked around the clock to understand and improve upon the designs. Meanwhile, the Council's extraction accelerated. Water reserves from deep aquifers disappeared at alarming rates. Minerals were harvested from Earth's crust in quantities that would have taken humans decades to mine. During a private inspection of a Council mining site, Reed noticed something concerning. They were extracting elements from increasingly dangerous locations, including near tectonic fault lines. "They don't care about stability," he told the Emergency Council that night. "If they trigger earthquakes or volcanic activity, they'll simply blame it on natural disasters." Dr. Wright's team had made a breakthrough that gave them their first real hope. "We've identified a fundamental principle in their shield technology that they don't fully understand themselves," he explained. "It's like they're using a mathematical formula without knowing why it works." Reed's eyes narrowed. "And we can improve it. We already have," Wright said with the first genuine smile anyone had seen in weeks. Now we just need time to build it. Reed nodded. Then let's be very good, very obedient hosts, while we prepare to show them exactly what humanity is capable of. The underwater facility, known simply as Deep Base, hummed with activity day and night. Located 2 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean's surface, it sat beyond the detection range of Council scanners. Here, Earth's greatest minds worked tirelessly to create humanity's best chance for survival. Dr. Wright moved between workstations, his tired eyes scanning progress reports. The central chamber housed what the team called Project Phoenix, their improved version of Council Shield technology. The breakthrough came when we realized they were using only surface-level applications of quantum field theory, Wright explained to Admiral Reed during his weekly inspection. They treat technology like magic, using it without understanding its foundations. Reed watched as engineers tested a prototype shield generator. A small dome of shimmering energy appeared, deflecting high-energy projectiles fired from a test cannon. Our version is 40% more efficient, Wright said with undisguised pride. And they'll never see it coming because they don't believe we could improve their perfect technology. Above the surface, Earth played its part with convincing submission. Government representatives attended council meetings, nodding respectfully at new restrictions on human industry and resource use. Military forces remained in their bases, seemingly accepting the council's protection. Meanwhile, Deep Base wasn't the only secret operation. Across the planet, hidden facilities converted existing weapons using reverse-engineered alien technology. Old missile silos now housed ships built with hybrid human-alien designs. Decommissioned submarines were retrofitted with advanced propulsion systems. General Torres oversaw the training of Earth's unified defense forces in remote locations. Soldiers learned to operate new weapons and vehicles that combined human ingenuity with alien tech. The Council believes all humans think alike, Torres told her officers during a secret briefing. Their species evolved with hive mind tendencies. They cannot comprehend our individual creativity. And that's our advantage. The Council continued to extract Earth's resources at an alarming rate. Their mining operations expanded, causing minor earthquakes in previously stable regions. When questioned, Delegate Thorin dismissed concerns. These are natural phenomena, he stated during a public address, his skin color shifting to calming blues. The Council has centuries of experience managing planetary resources. Your worries are unfounded. But Reed and his team had inserted monitoring devices into Council equipment. The data showed the aliens were taking far more than reported, with no regard for environmental stability. 3 months after first contact, Reed called an emergency meeting in Deep Base's secure command center. The extraction rate has doubled, he reported grimly. At this pace, they'll trigger major tectonic events within months, not years. We need more time. Dr. Morgan, who had continued monitoring Council communications, raised her hand. There's something else. The Council ships are transmitting regular status reports to something they call the processing fleet. Based on the data, this fleet is much larger than what we've seen. And it's on its way here. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. They're not just taking samples, Reed said quietly. This is phase 1. The next phase will strip Earth bare. Wright stood up. Project Phoenix is at 90%. We need 2 more weeks to complete the shield network and arm our defense fleet. Reed nodded decisively. Then we'll give you those weeks. It's time for active misdirection. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Earth would appear to discover some of the Council's minor extraction operations and react with predictable outrage. While Council forces were occupied with this distraction, the final preparations would be completed. Underground factories worked at maximum capacity, producing shield generators and weapon systems based on the improved designs. The components were distributed globally through a network of fishing vessels, cargo planes, and unmarked trucks. Old-fashioned transportation the Council deemed too primitive to monitor closely. In orbit, the Council remained confident in their control. Thorin's reports to his superiors expressed satisfaction with Earth's compliance, noting only minor resistance that was easily managed. "These humans are like all primitive species," he dictated for his weekly report. "They value immediate comfort over long-term survival. By the time they realize the extent of our harvesting, it will be too late for resistance." In Deep Base, Admiral Reed studied the deployment map showing Earth's hidden forces. Green lights indicated ready status from bases across the planet. The shield network was nearly complete, with generators hidden near every major population center. "They think we're primitive," Reed said softly to no one in particular. "They have no idea what humans do when our world is threatened." He turned to his communications officer. "Tell all commands, prepare for Phase 1. It's almost time to show the Council exactly what they've awakened." The Council's suspicions began when 3 major research facilities went completely dark to their surveillance systems. These facilities, located in remote areas of Russia, Brazil, and Australia, had previously appeared to be conducting permitted agricultural research. "Something is interfering with our monitoring systems," reported Lanek, Thorin's security chief. His skin pulsed with anxious yellows as he displayed the affected areas. "We're detecting unusual energy signatures from these locations." Thorin's 4-fingered hand tapped the display impatiently. "These humans are becoming too comfortable with our technology. It's time to remind them of their place." Without warning, Council ships launched precision strikes against the Russian facility. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through the research complex, reducing it to smoldering ruins in seconds. Thorin expected immediate surrender calls from Earth's governments. Instead, there was silence. In Deep Base, Admiral Reed watched the attack footage with a grim expression. The Russian facility had been evacuated weeks ago, leaving only holographic projections and automated systems to fool Council surveillance. "They've made their move," Reed said to the Emergency Command Council. "Now we make ours." He turned to his communications officer. "Send the message. Tell Thorin we wish to negotiate surrender terms." Within hours, Reed led a delegation of 12 Earth representatives to the main Council station in orbit. They were escorted through gleaming corridors by armed guards, their faces appropriately downcast and defeated. Thorin waited in the central chamber, surrounded by Council officials. His skin glowed with triumphant orange tones. "Your resistance was predictable and futile," he stated as Reed approached. "The Council has managed thousands of species more advanced than yours. You will now accept complete supervision of all Earth activities." Reed bowed his head in apparent submission. "We understand now that we cannot oppose your technology. We only ask for terms that will allow our people to survive." As he spoke, members of his delegation moved throughout the chamber, seemingly intimidated by the alien technology. In reality, each placed tiny devices on crucial systems, devices developed from Council technology, but modified in ways the aliens couldn't detect. "Your people will survive as long as they are useful," Thorin replied coldly. "The processing fleet arrives in 3 days. Prepare your population for full resource extraction." Reed looked up, his defeated expression suddenly replaced with something that made Thorin step back: determination. "The only preparation needed is yours," Reed said clearly. Now, throughout the station, the planted devices activated simultaneously. Council systems flickered and died as cascading failures spread through their network. Emergency lighting bathed the chamber in dim red. In orbit around Earth, humanity launched its response. Ships rose from hidden underwater bases, desert bunkers, and mountain hideaways. Vessels built with Council technology, but improved by human ingenuity. They engaged the surprise Council ships with weapons the aliens had never seen before. On the station, Reed's team moved with practiced efficiency. They neutralized the guards with targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the aliens' nervous systems, another innovation the Council never considered. Reed approached the now stunned Thorin. "You made 3 critical mistakes. First, you underestimated our intelligence. Second, you threatened our home. But your worst mistake. He leaned closer. You gave us time to prepare. Around Earth, the battle unfolded with unexpected results. Council ships found their weapons mysteriously ineffective against Earth vessels, protected by improved shield technology. Human ships targeted specific weaknesses in Council designs that the aliens never thought to address. In cities worldwide, hidden shield generators activated, creating protective domes over population centers, just as Council reinforcements arrived and attempted planetary bombardment. Their energy weapons splashed harmlessly against the shield network. On the main station's bridge, Reed forced Thorin to watch as the Council forces were systematically disabled by Earth's defense fleet. "Impossible," Thorin whispered, his skin now ashen gray. "Your species couldn't have developed these capabilities." "You gave us the tools," Reed replied. "We just improved them. And now you're going to help us send a message to your processing fleet and the entire Galactic Council." Reed activated the station's communication system, now under Earth's control. The signal would reach every Council world and ship. "This is Admiral James Reed of Earth. Your invasion has failed. Your exploitation ends today, not just for Earth, but for all worlds under Council protection. We're coming for you next." The processing fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly 3 days later, just as Thorin had predicted. Instead of finding a subdued Earth ready for harvesting, they faced an astonishing sight. Council stations under human control and their advance forces disabled or destroyed. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Fleet Commander Vex, his transmission directed at what should have been Thorin's command center. His massive command ship dwarfed the other vessels, a planet killer designed to crack open worlds resistant to Council authority. Admiral Reed sat in Thorin's former chair, the alien delegate secured nearby under guard. "This is Earth responding to your invasion. Your advance forces have been neutralized." Vex's multifaceted eyes widened on the screen. "Impossible. Surrender immediately, or we will reduce your cities to ash." Reed's expression remained calm. "I recommend you scan our defenses before making threats you can't enforce." The processing fleet launched its first assault wave, 300 attack ships designed to overwhelm planetary defenses. They entered Earth's atmosphere in tight formation, weapon systems powering up for devastating strikes. They never reached their targets. Earth's shield network activated at full capacity, creating overlapping energy fields that the Council ships couldn't penetrate. When the alien vessels concentrated fire on perceived weak points, the shields adapted, another innovation humans had added to the basic Council technology. From hidden bases around the planet, Earth's defense fleet rose to meet the invaders. These ships looked nothing like traditional human vessels or Council designs, instead representing a true hybrid of technologies. They moved with impossible agility, their improved drives giving them maneuverability the Council ships couldn't match. On the captured station, Reed watched the battle unfold with Dr. Wright and General Torres at his side. They're following standard Council attack patterns, Torres noted as the alien ships regrouped for another assault. "No adaptation, no creative thinking. Their technology has made them complacent," Wright added. "They haven't faced a real challenge in centuries." Reed nodded. "Deploy Phase 2. Earth's ships suddenly changed tactics, forming smaller independent strike teams that targeted specific vulnerabilities in Council vessel design. Precision attacks disabled propulsion systems and weapons without destroying the ships completely, a mercy the Council had never shown to other worlds. Commander Vex's furious transmissions continued as his fleet's advantage evaporated. "This defiance is unprecedented. How are primitive humans defeating Council technology?" Reed activated a special broadcast frequency that would reach not just the processing fleet, but every Council ship and world simultaneously. Dr. Morgan had discovered this emergency channel in the Council's own database, another oversight born of arrogance. "Attention all Council worlds and vessels," Reed began. "This is Earth broadcasting evidence of Council atrocities." The transmission included data recovered from Thorin's own files, detailed records of worlds systematically exploited and destroyed, images of dying planets, desperate messages from other species pleading for mercy, and the Council leadership's callous responses to these pleas. The Council has presented itself as a benevolent authority, Reed continued, while exploiting hundreds of worlds to extinction. Earth refuses this fate and offers alliance to any others who wish to break free. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the processing fleet, ships from certain species suddenly broke formation, their captains clearly conflicted by the evidence. 3 Council species had no idea their homeworlds had been similarly exploited before being granted full membership in exchange for military service. In orbit above Earth, the battle turned decisively. Earth's forces disabled the remaining loyal Council ships with surgical precision, while Commander Vex's flagship found itself isolated as its support vessels retreated or surrendered. "This cannot be happening," Vex growled, his skin now pulsing angry red. "You are nothing. A primitive species barely out of its planetary cradle." Reed's reply was measured and calm. "Yet here we are. Your flagship is surrounded. Your fleet is defeated, and your Council's crimes are exposed to the galaxy. Surrender now." Vex's response was to target his planet-killer weapon directly at North America, a final act of defiance. But as the massive weapon charged, it suddenly went dark. On the flagship's bridge, Vex turned to find members of his own crew disabling the systems. The evidence of Council atrocities had broken centuries of conditioning. As Earth forces boarded the flagship, Reed sent a final message to the watching galaxy. "The Council's reign of exploitation ends today. A new era begins, one of cooperation, not subjugation." The news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy faster than any Council sensors could contain it. On 23 worlds currently under protection status, populations rose up against their Council overseers. Centuries of careful control began to crumble in days. Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. Built using improved Council technology, it could travel between stars in ways humanity had only dreamed of months earlier. The ship led a fleet of 30 similar vessels, crewed by a combination of humans and defectors from 7 Council species. "We're receiving another distress call," reported Lieutenant Rogers at Communications. "The Trilari people are requesting immediate assistance. Council loyalists are threatening orbital bombardment if their rebellion doesn't stand down." Reed studied the star map displaying their position relative to the Trilari homeworld. "Set course immediately. Maximum speed." The Defiance and 5 escort ships broke formation, their advanced drives creating ripples in space-time as they accelerated beyond anything the Council had thought possible. Dr. Wright's team had improved the alien propulsion systems by nearly 60%, another innovation born from humanity's fresh perspective on established technologies. Within hours, they arrived at Trilari, a blue-green world not unlike Earth. In orbit, 3 Council enforcement vessels were preparing to make good on their threats, weapon systems charging to target population centers below. The Defiance appeared directly between the Council ships and the planet, its improved shields at full power. "Council vessels, this is Admiral Reed of Earth." He transmitted on all frequencies. "Your actions constitute war crimes under the new Galactic Charter. Stand down immediately." The Council commander's response was predictable. "Earth has no authority here. The Council has maintained order for 10,000 years. You cannot undo our system in days." "We already have," Reed replied simply. At his signal, Earth's ships deployed their most powerful weapon, not a destructive force, but information. Targeted data packets penetrated Council communication systems, delivering undeniable evidence directly to every crew member aboard. Images of their leaders destroying worlds, starving populations, and lying to their own people. 2 of the Council ships immediately powered down their weapons. The third, commanded by a die-hard loyalist, fired anyway, only to have its beam absorbed by the Defiance's advanced shields. The Earth fleet responded with precision strikes that disabled the hostile ship without destroying it. Within minutes, its crew had mutinied against their commander, adding another vessel to the growing coalition of liberated worlds. On the surface of Trilari, Reed met with the rebellion leaders, tall, graceful beings with silvery skin who had suffered under council rule for generations. "We never thought freedom was possible," said Elder Kinnell, the rebellion's leader. "The council told us protection was necessary because we were too primitive to govern ourselves." "They told us the same lie," Reed explained. "It's how they justified taking everything of value from hundreds of worlds." As the Defiance continued its mission, more planets joined Earth's coalition. Some were current victims of council extraction. Others were supposedly full members who discovered they had been manipulated for centuries. The council leadership retreated to their central world, a massive artificial construct orbiting a red giant star. Here, the 12 high delegates who truly controlled the council prepared their final defense. "They've activated their doomsday protocols," Dr. Morgan reported as the coalition fleet approached the central world. Her team had continued decoding council communications, staying ahead of their encryption changes. "They're threatening to trigger supernovas in populated systems if we don't back down." Reed's expression hardened. "Another bluff. They need those stars intact for their resource operations." The coalition fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 200 ships from 35 species, all united against council tyranny. Before them loomed the central world, a marvel of engineering that had stood for millennia as the seat of council power. High Delegate Muvin, most senior of the council leaders, appeared on the communication screens. Unlike Thorin's expressive color changes, Muvin's skin remained a cold, unchanging blue, a sign of his species' highest evolutionary control. "This uprising will end here," he stated with absolute confidence. "You have broken the peace that has existed for 10,000 years. Countless species will suffer from this chaos." Reed stood from his command chair. The only peace the council maintained was the silence of the exploited. That ends today. At his command, the coalition fleet moved forward, their improved shields easily absorbing the desperate fire from council defenses. The central world's vaunted protection systems, once thought impenetrable, failed against weapons they were never designed to stop. As coalition forces boarded the central world, Reed transmitted one final message to the watching galaxy. "Today marks the end of exploitation disguised as protection. Tomorrow, we begin building something better, together." 1 year after the fall of the central world, representatives from over 50 species gathered in a newly constructed hall on neutral territory, a space station orbiting a star that had no planets, chosen specifically so no single world could claim to host the new alliance. The grand chamber of the Galactic Alliance gleamed with architecture that honored traditions from dozens of worlds. Sunlight streamed through crystal panels created by Trilari artisans. Support columns featured earth marble alongside luminescent stone from distant Kirax. The chamber embodied the principle that no single species' aesthetics or values would dominate. Admiral Reed, now Ambassador Reed, walked the chamber's perimeter, still amazed at how much had changed in so little time. He paused to watch delegates from formerly hostile species engaged in earnest conversation. "Still finding it hard to believe?" asked Dr. Morgan, joining him by a viewport overlooking the stars. "I keep expecting to wake up back in deep base with the council ships still over Earth." Reed smiled slightly. "The hardest part wasn't defeating them. It's been figuring out what comes next." The collapse of the council had revealed the full extent of their manipulation. 27 worlds had been completely stripped of resources and abandoned. Hundreds more teetered on ecological collapse. The Council's perfect order had been built on systematic exploitation that dated back thousands of years. In the center of the chamber, the Galactic Alliance Charter hovered as a holographic display, a living document that continued to evolve as member worlds suggested improvements. Its core principles were simple: mutual defense, fair resource exchange, technological cooperation, and absolute prohibition of exploitation. "The vote begins in 10 minutes, Morgan reminded him. "We should take our seats." The first official act of the newly formed alliance would be determining justice for the former council leaders. The 12 high delegates had been held in a neutral facility while evidence of their crimes was compiled. The debate over their fate had been contentious, with some species demanding execution and others arguing for mercy. Reed took his place among the Earth delegation as the chamber lights dimmed. The Alliance speaker, a thoughtful being from a species that communicated through light patterns, called the assembly to order. "Today we determine not just the fate of those who wronged us," the speaker's translated words flowed through the room, "but the kind of justice our alliance will stand for." The evidence presentation was brief. The crimes were well documented and undeniable. The Council had destroyed or critically damaged over 300 worlds through their extraction policies. Trillions of lives had been affected, with entire species driven to extinction. When the former High Delegate Movin was brought forward to hear the Alliance's decision, his once proud bearing was gone. His unchanging blue skin had faded to a dull gray. "Do you understand the charges against you?" the speaker asked. Movin's voice was hollow. "You cannot judge what you do not understand." The Council maintained order. "Without us, the galaxy will descend into chaos and war." Ambassador Reed stood, indicating his wish to address the assembly. The speaker acknowledged him with a pulse of light. For 10,000 years, the Council claimed that exploitation was necessary for peace. Reed began. "They insisted that only they could prevent chaos. Yet in 1 year since their fall, we have built something they never could. Cooperation based on respect, not fear." He turned to face Movin directly. "The greatest punishment for beings like you isn't death. It's witnessing the prosperity of the worlds you claimed could never govern themselves." The Alliance vote was nearly unanimous. The former Council leaders would spend the remainder of their lives helping to repair the damage they had caused. They would work alongside the very species they had exploited, restoring worlds they had nearly destroyed. As the session concluded, delegates moved to the observation deck for the ceremony marking the Alliance's official formation. 50 ships, one from each founding member world, performed a synchronized flight pattern symbolizing their unity. Reed stood slightly apart from the crowd, watching Earth's vessel, the Defiance, take its place in the formation. General Torres joined him, now the head of the Alliance Defense Force. "Having second thoughts about stepping down from military command?" she asked. Reed shook his head. "Earth needed warriors to survive the Council. It needs diplomats to thrive in the Alliance." Together they watched as the combined fleet formed a perfect spiral in space, each ship maintaining its unique identity while part of something greater. A small delegation of young cadets from various species approached, including several humans. One stepped forward nervously. "Ambassador Reed, they're asking us at the Academy, what should we remember most about Earth's stand against the Council?" Reed considered the question carefully, looking out at the stars where so many worlds were now working to rebuild. "Remember that protection should never become control," he said finally. "Remember that true strength comes not from domination, but from the courage to stand together as equals." As the ships completed their formation, a communication signal rippled across every Alliance world. It was simple but powerful, a message in the languages of 50 species that translated to a single shared promise. Never again will any world stand alone.